Hello, everybody. This is Miss Watt, 7th grade ELA at Norway Middle School. And today we are going to focus on swag, specifically a poet's swag. And we're going to be coming from HMH textbook, page 229. So what is swag? Swag for a poet is their style, their word choice, their attitude towards a subject, and how we can glean the poet's insight based on the word choices and the figurative language that they use, and punctuation and capitalization. So let's get into it. A poet shares ideas by using swag elements. What are swag elements? So the S is style. Style is a manner of writing that involves how something is said rather than what is said. How something is said rather than what is said. Word choice. Well-chosen words and phrases used to express ideas precisely and creatively. So there are so many words that poets could use, but they're all intentionally chosen to provoke some type of precision in what the meaning of the text is, but also to bring forth some creativity. And we learned that from our use of the sonnet, or our analysis of the sonnet, The Drought. Veins and plains and dust and trust, and even the idea of the subject being about a drought. So here's an example, or what word choice examples can be. They can be descriptive words. They can be words that create imagery, or those mental pictures. Figurative language, similes and metaphors, personification. Remember, similes and metaphors are comparing two unlike things. Similes use the word like or as to compare those two unlike things, and metaphors eliminate the use of like or as to compare. And personification is when an author gives a non-human, human characteristics. Why do they use those things? Because those elements create a mood, a feeling, or atmosphere in the text. Author's attitude. Now that's the definition of tone. Tone is the poet's attitude toward a subject. But you might be saying, what is a subject? How do we even do that? How do we know what the subject is in the poem, or even a short story? So this is how you identify the subject. You ask yourself, what or who is the poem about? And then once you're able to identify the subject, you identify the feeling. You ask yourself, what is the poet saying about that subject? Now that's a really abstract idea. Let's use a more concrete example. So as I mentioned earlier, 2 weeks ago, we looked at the sonnet, The Drought by Amy Helfrich. And if just for textual reference, you can go back to page 212. So she starts telling us, the poet is using a character, a farmer, and she gives us examples of what the farmer's thinking, what the farmer is doing. And here's one of the lines. He moves among the dying plains. So what or who is the poem about? Although there is a person in the poem, the farmer, the main subject is not the farmer. It's actually a drought. So the subject is a drought, or the drought. And drought, just as a reminder, is the absence of water. So the author, or the poet, uses this line, he moves among the dying plains. And that shows us that droughts are destructive. The drought in this text has become destructive. The plains are dying. But the sonnet doesn't end there. The sonnet, as we continue in the text, this is another line that says, because in years he's learned, look for breath inside the broken lands. So what is the poet saying about a drought? Yes, it's destructive. Yet, in this, towards the end of the poem, we see a shift to a more hopeful tone that the land will still produce. Now, I hear you saying, Miss Watts, how do you know that? Are you just saying that because you have the answer key? Yes and no. So yes, I have the answer key, but I've become an expert at looking at word choices and how that can then determine the author's attitude towards a subject. So we dove a lot last time into the word breath. Breath can mean life or death. We've already seen death here with the drought, and then there was a shift that took place in the text. And when the poet says, and through the narrator says, look for breath inside the broken lands. The breath there, we already know that it's dead, that it's dying. So if we're looking for breath, we're not looking for death here. We would actually be looking for life. So because we are seeking, or the farmer is seeking, breath in those broken lands, the poet's attitude towards the drought has shifted. And by the end of the sonnet, the poet's attitude is hopeful that the land will produce. And we found all of that by identifying the subject. What or who is the poem about? And then what is the poet saying about the drought? Yes, it's destructive, yet by the end, the poet has a hopeful attitude based on the word breath here. And then we've got our G in swag. We can glean the poet's insight. Glean means to collect clues, to get an understanding of. So we're going to collect clues that reveal a poet's unique style of expression, traits, beliefs, and attitudes. So we all understand what unique style of expression is because we all have our own specific things that we like to do and how we like to express ourselves based on the way we dress, the way we do our hair, even the way that we walk and our postures. And so the same thing can happen in a poet's text by the use of all of his or her accessories, like capitalization, like punctuation, like word choice, like the attitude they have towards the subject. Those are just accessories, and we call those clues to try to reveal what that poet's style is. So when we're going to figure out the poet's style, we need to ask ourselves, what is revealed by the poet's style of expression? So once I start finding those clues, those accessories throughout a poem, what is being expressed or revealed to me? So let's go back to the drought. Lines 11 and 12 in the drought, the poet intentionally uses some punctuation here. She chooses to use 5 commas. Let's read the text. It says, and yet, because in years he's learned that oftentimes there's something left to save. So earlier I mentioned how the drought changed from destruction to now hopeful. That's the author's attitude towards the subject. And this is where that shift begins with the use of all these commas. An author is a creator. A poet is a creator. They can choose to do whatever they want to in their text. And Amy chooses to add commas here, not because she just felt like throwing commas around, but they have an intentional purpose. And the purpose here is to shift the text, to slow down the rhythm of the poem. Ever since elementary school, when you first learn about punctuation marks, periods, and exclamation points, and quotation marks, and even commas, we know that commas are a pause and not a stop. So here, with the use of these 5 commas, what's revealed to us in this unique expression is that the author knows and the poet knows to use commas to slow down the pace, which then leads us to a shift in the meaning of the text. And we know by the end, because all sonnets, the first 12 lines, produce the problem, in lines 13 and 14 are always the solution to the problem that's addressed in the first 12 lines. The last 2 lines says, he stops to sift the dusty earth in his hands that look for breath inside the broken lands. And so we saw that here, that's where the shift has happened, and now what was the problem, it's dying. We're now looking for the possibility of life, which causes hope. So look at how cool that is, that we can just go through swag. Poets intentionally add all of these elements, not so they can put it in a textbook, right? But so that whoever encounters their text has the opportunity to flow in their swag. So just a reminder, swag is style, word choice, attitude, and as the reader, we can glean or gather or get understanding of the poet's insight, how they feel about a subject, what's their traits and their beliefs, and even their traits and beliefs and attitudes towards their subject matter. Once we use swag, these will all help us to analyze poetry at a deeper level. And this week, we're going to have the opportunity to read two poems. We're going to read Ode to Enchanted Light, and we're also going to read Sleeping in the Forest, both found in our HMH textbook. If you have any questions about swag, be sure to send your teacher a message in Canvas, and we look forward to seeing all of you become swag experts.